I focus more on Marathi because I have my roots, and then I feel very proud to be called as a Marathi person.
Marathi films certainly feel like they serve as anchors for a lot of people.
NAFA is giving a 360-degree experience. Productions, film distribution, film festival. If the Marathi film industry that was established in India, in America, that can be re-established, and I think this can create a lot of opportunities for the next generation.
My name is Abhay and I share conversations with talented and interesting individuals linked to the global Indian and South Asian community. It's informal and informative, adding insights to our evolving cultural expressions, where each person can proudly say, "Trust me, I know what I'm doing."
Namaskar and welcome to this episode of Trust Me, I Know What I'm Doing. आपल्या सर्वांचा स्वागत करतो आणि आज माझ्यासोबत नॉर्थ अमेरिकन फिल्म असोसिएशनचे फाउंडर आहेत मिस्टर अभि घोलप आणि आम्ही या मुलाखतीत इंग्लिशमध्ये बोलणार आहोत. So just by way of introduction, Abhi is the founder of the North American Film Association and the convener of the 2025 North American Film Festival. Abhi is a serial entrepreneur and an investor, and most importantly, like me, a Marathi film enthusiast. It's so nice to chat with you today, and thank you so much for joining Trust Me, I Know What I'm Doing.
Thank you so much for having me.
You know, I'm curious. I really am thinking a lot about firsts these days because they tend to make a deep impression on us as people. So I'm curious for you, do you remember the first time you watched a Marathi film? And maybe what are some of the memories of that very first experience?
So actually, it's a great question because my mom used to watch a lot of Marathi films, and that's how I grew along with the films. And as you know, in India, there are two religions, right? People have... either they are belonging to a religion of films or they belong to the religion of cricket.
Right.
And so that's where, I grew in the same thought process. And when I used to watch Marathi films, those days, Delhi Doordarshan used to run those films on every Saturday. And then we used to get that film and then, all the people in that housing complex used to come together because maybe one or two people have only the televisions. So then they are sitting and watching the film. So I think I
a small
watch...
community.
Small community. Yeah. So you get to watch the film with a crowd, and then that effect is much different. So I think most of the films that I saw kind of got imbibed in my mind, and I have watched so many Marathi films, and that's where I think I love those films.
Was there one or two or one specifically that you remember? Boy, that's the first time I remember actually that community, or everyone is gathered around that TV set or not.
So I think, the movie called Ashi Hi Banwa Banvi, that kind of, left long-lasting marks on my mind because I think it was very humorous take.
How old were you, by the way?
So I think I was in 7th grade that time.
Yep.
And that's where, just in the last year when we did the similar replication of Ashi Banwa Banvi at NAFA first film festival, we kind of, simulated that with all the artists coming in person. So I think that has really left a significant mark on my mind.
Almost a full circle moment for you, right?
Very true.
Yeah, I kind of share the same thing. It's sort of a full circle moment. My first Marathi movie was when, around the same age, this was in 1982, and my first two movies that I remember actually were seeing in a theater setting, Ram Shastri and Lakhachi Goshta, and they were part of a Marathi Chitrapat Mahamandala tour and North American Film Festival way back then in 1982 with Sudhir Phadke and Dr. Jabbar Patel and Sharad Pirgaonkar, at that time Smita Patil, many others. It's so wonderful to see now, full circle for you personally, and then also this kind of torch being carried on. For you, you entered this world as a producer, and of course of the award-winning film Deol. Was that spirit of organizing and financing and mobilizing resources, especially as a producer, was that kind of the fuel that was actually required to accelerate this phenomenon and movement when it comes to NAFA?
Yeah, interestingly, when I got into the film productions, I had no connection to that industry whatsoever.
Yeah.
In fact, during the school days, hardly remember me getting a chance to be even on the stage, because in those days, not all the kids were allowed to come on the stage. Only the good-looking and performing kids are on the stage, and I was always in the audience. So I had like no connection that anybody could have considered me in this industry of filmmaking or digital media. But then that's what happened during the time of Deul, where this movie story got pitched to me. And thanks to my first venture that got acquired here in US, and then that story got pitched to me as a financer, I realized that as an entrepreneur, I can be more value adder than only a financer. And that's where I became more like a hands-on producer. I saw this industry very closely. I saw people, their dedication, their connections. And then I became kind of good friends with most of the film fraternity members. And that's where they all did pretty well, but then just to prove that was not a fluke, because it was my debut awards and box office hit, I produced the second one and then a third one, and I got into that.
Yeah.
Now, going back to your question, when you are trying to bring these contents to the horizon, as an American, Marathi American, as we can say, I feel that there's not much happening here in US. Not Marathi producers who are producing the films in India are getting any revenues here. So there is no business model for them to come and showcase the films here. And then you see the contrast with South Indian films or Hindi films. They earn tons of money from these geographies. And that's actually sparked that idea in my mind that, why don't I connect those two dots? Because I know both the geographies very well. I know the industry very well. And there is a hole in this market. So why not I try filling this hole as an entrepreneur?
It's a glaring, obvious gap that's there. I understand that there's a sort of Tirupati connection to this as well. For you, there must have been some aha moment that after having this experience, being able to recognize that there's a gap there, not just a personal one, but a community one and a market gap as well. Was that sort of a natural fit then that, you can, again, as we were just talking about this before we started, but the passion leading into more work?
Yeah, absolutely. Because as an entrepreneur, I think what gets my adrenaline on is in terms of if there is any gap, and then if me as a human can bring the value. And I really felt that we can really do something in this space. Though this was completely outside my comfort zone, I'm kind of a newcomer in this space, because even when we thought of doing the filmmaking, I always had done it in the setup of commercial setup, right? It's not like a non-profit social organization, community. That's a completely different ball game. So all my companies so far, all my startups so far, have always been for commercial, for profit purposes. But then I decided to go ahead with North American Film Association as my next baby in terms of establishing itself in the continent of North America, because I felt that there is a need for this kind of requirement is there for the community, the Marathi community, and then that local talent here. And that's where I thought of going ahead with this kind of a concept.
That has so many tentacles that spread from there, the social impact of it, definitely the community impact, not to mention the artistic impact of it. You mentioned that this is a nonprofit. NAFA has a core mission to produce films, to distribute them, and mainly to showcase them, right, through festivals. Why is prioritizing these three strands, producing them, getting the creative arm, scaling them to distribute, and then, of course, showcasing and socializing them through festivals. Why are prioritizing these three strands particularly so important for the North American community, not just the Marathi community, but for that matter, anybody who's interested in film?
Yeah, certainly. You are right. That kind of requirement is there also across other languages. Yeah. But I focus more on Marathi because I have my roots, and then I feel very proud to be called as a Marathi person. And especially if you look at Marathi cinema is known for its sensible stories. Marathi and Bengali are those kind of movies where people can learn a lot from their story. But we don't need to be preachy. Even my movies like Deul or even Bharatiya, it was giving some social message at the end of the day.
There's a lot more subtext to that.
Yes, correct. So we were not trying to give that message through preaching mode, but rather we are trying to give it through a satirical mode so that people laugh, and then they realize that they're laughing on themselves. And that's where it teaches them a lot. In fact, I strongly believe that movie is that medium where even if the illiterate person sits in front of it, he or she can learn a lot from that. So it's a very good communication mechanism. Yeah. So that is where when NAFA concept was coming in my mind, what I was looking for is, we have got a lot of local talent here. Lots of kids are very keen in getting into the films, and thanks to our neighborhood Hollywood fraternity. Yeah. So we certainly wanted to bring in that ability for ourselves to produce our own films. And now that with OTT kind of the platforms, the streaming platforms, like really the geographies doesn't have any more borders. So it's like a flat world now, right? So you're really taking those contents to various countries seamlessly. So my idea here was that, hey, why not I produce a movie on a backdrop of Las Vegas or on a backdrop of San Francisco, and then have kind of a horror comedy or maybe a nice love story, but then it's made in Marathi. And then that movie can then be shown in the cities of Pune and Mumbai. And people will say, oh, wow, they never imagined that this can happen also overseas.
You're almost crossing the anchors a little bit,
Correct.
right? And especially for those who are global Marathi or global Indians, global South Asians, or for that matter, global film lovers. The stories are transcendent. They're not just dependent on language. Have you found that especially the scaling, the distribution process, the festival process, I mean, obviously those things take practice. So has that been something that you have found, I wouldn't say easy, but, of course takes some work, but as that, experience grows, that more and more people feel like they are wanting to join that. Has that been so far the experience that you've had?
Yeah, like you wouldn't believe when I floated this concept of NAFA, we started with maybe like 20, 25 people to begin with. And now in a span of I think within 45 days or 60 days, we had like almost 300 people across US signed up for this, to be the members of this. Now we are a little over 1,000 members, and I think the community is growing. And since we are also handling the film distribution, there are lots of film producers and directors from India that are in direct touch with us. They want their films to be released here. Right. But only releasing the film is not an indicator of a success. But when the recent film that we released here, they got 12% of their revenues coming from US. And I think this is the money that many producers and directors in India were leaving on the table, that NAFA is facilitated.
There's a craving for this here. There's a market for it here. It certainly is poised to grow. And again, storytelling does not necessarily limit itself to members, right? I mean, there are audiences, there are many, many stakeholders in this ecosystem. And because storytelling is so universal, and Marathi films, while having a terrific legacy and history, I mean, we mentioned Marathi talkies going back, many, many years here. And then on top of that, so many more modern waves of creativity, throughout these 2000s and so forth. The global appeal and scale of this kind of cinema has great, incredible interest, but also lots of challenges, right? I mean, what do you think it takes to overcome those barriers to scale even more now, right? You mentioned the market's there, but even more now with financiers and backers and directors and audiences to, in a way, start paralleling a little bit more of what the Bollywood or the Tollywood or the Collywood experience might be. Is there a day where the Mollywood experience really starts happening?
So if you look at that experience audience, the audience total available market who can get that experience, right? I mean, I'll go other way around. As the registered Marathi people in US, there are around 500,000 people.
Correct.
There'll be more who are not registered, but 500,000, right? It's a very small community, not even in the top 5. So from that perspective, we do understand that it's a limited market. But at the same point of time, if we are able to show them the film screenings, then instead of we going from city to city, we wanted to establish a partnership with the theaters across nation. So that's what the first thing that we did, that how can I show the film in every city the same day it get also released anywhere on this earth. So from that perspective, people do not even wait to go for some pirated movie screening and everything, because now they get to see everything next to their homes. The secondly, people who are trying to bring in some innovations in this space, like us, right? I mean, NAFA is not an inventor. The model was already existing there. We are innovating that model. We are improvising that model where we can create a revenue generation abilities for the film producers so that they can see this as a good ROI and they can invest more. Now, if they can invest more, there'll be more Marathi films will come. And then if they are able to get their own revenue generated through various means, I'm sure that, there will be more and more newcomers that they will jump into.
The work that has to go on even before the film gets to the theater, and then scaling that, of course, to have it available in just about every neighborhood, right?
And then also, like when you are trying to bring out the subjects, there are many subjects that come out which are based on, the cities in India, like maybe Maharashtra, like Konkan, or maybe Baramati or Latur. But what about the subjects here? Because the Marathi Americans are in US for now more than 6-7 decades, and they have their own challenges, own topics, and people would love to watch those. And it doesn't need to be only the Hindi Karan Johar glossy banner. It can be also a Marathi banner. And that's what even I had shown in Deul, that when Deul won Suvarna Kamal National Award, it got it across all the languages. So the Marathi as a language, we never took an advantage of being Marathi. And that's why we are a minority. And that's why you please give me an award. No, we actually even took the artists like Nana Patekar, who had a national appeal. Though he's a Marathi guy, he's a national appeal. Yeah. We also got Nasruddin Shah, we got Sonali Kulkarni. And that's where the presentation matters. I think Marathi movies today, they are thinking that, hey, my audience is like only a very classified audience, and then they themselves put restrictions on them.
Right. And then I think that's not true.
Yeah, because language, like we are watching a lot of series on Netflix which are coming from Korea, and the movies which are also coming from, like France and even Iran. So the language is not really a barrier. So I think the idea here is that, can you make a global cinema? It can be in Marathi as a language, one of the language, but you can still make a global cinema. And then that global cinema can really reach the borders.
I think the Korean model is incredibly powerful, right? With Parasite and others on Netflix, and it can show that there's not only great commercial appeal, but very much critical appeal as well. And same thing with Deur, that's a great example of that. I know that Rohan Kanode's film Sabar Bonda was featured at Sundance this year, so definitely something for us to be very proud of. Marathi, as you mentioned, there's stories that are definitely, there's a craving for those stories, not just based in Maharashtra, but abroad as well, and certainly in North America. Marathi films certainly feel like they serve as anchors for a lot of people, and they serve as anchors to days gone by, and we get nostalgic about them, but definitely there are current stars or directors in Maharashtra who are showcasing their work. But what is NAFA doing, maybe you think, to plant seeds and actually build ladders for that filmmaker, for that producer, for that director who are looking to and now kind of create their homegrown stories and really kind of spread and scale those?
So two things in that. One is, there are many producers or filmmakers in India where their stories are not necessarily confined to state of Maharashtra, but there is an angle in that story where they need to have that story happening in the foreign countries. Now, NAFA is actually going to provide that platform, because there are some filmmakers who are now partnered with us where their 20 minutes, 25 minutes of a work, they want to do it in US, and then on that backdrop, because their story demands that. But then instead of they bringing all the crew and cast here, which is very costly and very logistically challenging, now they are going to come only a director and a main artist, and the rest of the infrastructure we will provide. And now, like for example, 30 years ago, when America started providing the software outsourcing to India, I think the film outsourcing is happening other way around, and we are doing it more like an insourcing.
You're getting that cross current there, right? Yeah. Well, that's great. And then, of course, I know that there are workshops and, the ability for people to grow this from the ground up. So you have sort of a bilateral approach, right? I mean, you have the platform and the infrastructure for those who are already the experts, and then you have kind of the master classes and the substrate for people to sort of grow that here. I've heard very, very smart investors, including you, who probably share the same sentiment, where they say, whatever you do in your investment dollar, don't get involved in restaurants, and definitely don't get involved in movies. So, they'll just break your heart sometimes. And my question and even curiosity to this is, in this process, maybe what have you had to unlearn a little bit of, or sort of unbias yourself, or even let go of when it comes to the Marathi film business?
You can be commercially smart, or you can be passionately enthusiastic. Now, you can choose one. In my healthcare business, I think I will not do anything which is passionately enthusiastic activity, like the way I'm doing in the films. In the films, I think, as you said rightly, it's a bad idea to invest in the films and restaurant business, because both of those are the perishable products, and they have their certain shelf life, and that is the big challenge. But at the same point of time, if you can really establish that as an industry, that essentially triggers my interest as an entrepreneur. And then if the Marathi film industry that was established in India, which is not necessarily only Marathi, but it became more like an Indian film industry by Dadasaheb Phalke in 1913. In America, that can be re-established, it can be re-nurtured, it can be mentored in a proper way. And I think this can create a lot of opportunities for the next generation. So I think it is also my give back to the society that can we be that conduit to establish that infrastructure, so that more and more people can come forward, they can produce more films, people get more jobs, they get more revenues. I think that whole industry can come up.
Right, building an ecosystem. I mean, you mentioned that word that, like, if you hit it, right, it actually can be incredibly enduring and have that longevity. And, just like a good restaurant you want to go back to, and the same thing you want to revisit more and more Marathi film. Is the goal then to provide some sort of North American Harishchandrachi factory? Is that the eventual idea?
That's correct. So we have already created 3 short films so far last year. We produced 3 short films this year as well. Now our crew and cast and members are all in place. So the reason we produce short films is because we wanted to play Ranji Trophy before we play Test cricket in terms of the cricket terminologies. Yeah. And I think we have successfully done that. All our short films, those were produced last year, went to different festivals. People are appreciating it. And all those 3 films are based on the stories related to Land of America. So as you rightly said, producing Harishchandraji Factory of America is something that is definitely on our cards. And now we are in the process now to start our first feature film production, which will be the first Marathi film produced in US that will go across the globe.
Definitely a universal dashboard that's out there and lots of big goals. NAFA's first festival was last year, and this year will be, promises to be even, with brighter shine and even in more prominence. We talked a little bit about this, but in an era where watching movies with other people in a theater or in a group seems to be taking a backseat to the content that I could see right on my phone, or we can consume at any moment, any time of a day, with just sort of a dizzying amount of choices, right? It's just a universe of so many different choices that are out there. Why are festivals and gatherings and discussions and workshops and screenings like this actually so valuable and important? What's the value add in 2025 where, in fact, I can, at the drop of a hat, actually have some of that at my fingertips? Yeah,
so I think I agree with what your viewpoint is. And I think, that's where the industry is transitioning. People used to watch movies in the theaters 10 years ago, and 20 years ago, and 30 years ago. But then maybe introduction of the videotapes, introduction of the CDs, introduction of the satellite-based viewing of the films, and now the streaming of the data is, of course, going to be a technological transformation that the world is going through. At the same point of time, there are still people would love to watch the movies because it's a different experience if you go to the theaters. Now, the people are going to theaters if they want to watch something bigger than life or just for the grandeur. Marathi movies normally doesn't come with the grandeur. They come with the topic of the subject, right, which touches them. So there is no hero or heroine in Marathi movie. There is an actor, but the hero of the movie is actually the story. Now, if you are going to watch that story on your cell phone versus in the theater, it doesn't matter. I completely agree with you. But the reason that we are celebrating the festival is for people to go forward and start watching movies. How they watch doesn't matter to us. If they watch on the cell phone, perfect. If they watch in the theaters, perfect. But we want them to watch it. We want them to be aware that there are such contents available. Because even for us, when we are starting to take those contents to the audiences, we are not saying that we should be only in the theaters. We are also going to push it on our OTT channels. Like, for example, NAFA is giving a 360-degree experience. So productions, film distribution, film festival. Now we also have NAFA Radio. So we are the Marathi channel where we are now promoting the contents. We want people to listen to those songs. We want people to hear those interviews. And now we are launching NAFA OTT as our 5th offering, where we will be offering the Marathi contents at their fingertips. So theater, OTT doesn't matter. Go and watch Marathi contents is what we are emphasizing on.
Seems like, so many spokes off of the same hub, right? There's a Marathi film story, and you can sort of appreciate that in any avenue. It does come back full circle to people gathering around the Doordarshan TV set a little bit. But on top of that, I think there is huge value to gathering and making sure that there is some connection, some community, and more importantly, relationship development, right? Because the relationship is not only just with the film, but it's with the people who are around that film. Let me get you out of here on this in the sense that we started this conversation talking about our own sort of first film experiences. And I want to end, just a twist of that, where, for those who are either attending a NAFA film event, this festival for the first time, or even perhaps watching and enjoying a Marathi film for the first time, how do you hope they feel after that experience?
To answer that question, let me also add a little bit of different dimension to this. So this year what we are doing is that in addition to the film festival, we have also organized the Marathi Red Carpet and Marathi Awards Night. So people know Cannes Film Festival more because of the Red Carpet than the film festival as a content. So, but that is where, there are maybe one or two celebrities come there from the Marathi film industry to showcase themselves.
Right.
Now here we are saying that, hey, this is a dedicated platform of North America. Come and showcase yourself, be a part of it.
Yeah.
So we are having 14 celebs coming from Marathi film industry as well as Bollywood industry, including Amol Palekar, Sachin Khedekar, Mahesh Kothare. We are also going to have the youngsters like Vaideh Parshurami, Adinath Kothare, Swapnil Joshi. They are coming on this platform to showcase their abilities. But at the same point of time, we also have one of the big Marathi name, but he is a big Bollywood director, Madhur Bhandarkar. He is also showcasing his work at NAFA Film Festival. Yeah. So along with them, we are creating that experience of a red carpet where more and more people will now come, and that will also be getting more and more local talent in addition to the youngsters, because we want to attract the youngsters to this community.
Sure.
And then that is where when the youngsters start adding a value, then that whole dynamic changes, that whole energy level changes. So this is what is going to happen this year. In addition to that, we are having the movie screenings, which are happening like the first time movies. Nobody has even seen those movies because those are not even released in the market. So we'll be releasing 4 movies this year in NAFA Film Festival, our own short films, short film competitions, student spotlight competitions, and then we also have a lot of master classes that people can learn from these experts. At the same point of time, the panel discussions, we are also having, like the sound workshop this time. So we are trying to give the experience to people that suppose, everybody knows about this movie Sholay, and we are saying that, okay, suppose you were in that movie, how will that look like? Right. And now we are going to demonstrate that thanks to the technological advancements right here in the Bay Area and the Silicon Valley, that we are able to simulate that for them.
I mean, something for everyone. When someone is at one of these events and they experience the red carpet, or for that matter, they learn about it later and they get inspired to, in fact, now watch a Marathi film. I mean, coming back to our own first experiences, now that they learn a little bit more, they get the buzz that's out there, and in a way, they see both the glamour and the, I think, hard work that goes back into this. How do you hope those first-timers feel again after they've experienced this for the first time? What do you hope they are thinking to themselves, and maybe what questions do you hope they're asking about NAFA?
These first-timers will certainly get interested because, and you see, first of all, they will come to this festival because there is some connect in their mind. And we certainly know that we cannot force people to speak Marathi or learn Marathi unless until they're willing to do that. Yeah. And we are in this country of freedom and freedom of expressions, where we do not want to enforce anybody to what they should do. We are telling them that there are better avenues. Why don't you consider that? Yeah. And if we are touching that natural instinct in a human being, and if the human being get attracted towards that, that's a long-lasting effect. And then from that perspective, when these first-timers come and get attached, like for example, look at the way last year we did the festival. It was a sold-out event. People loved it. And I really did not want to do it like every year. But then, because of so much of a demand, we decided to do this year also. And in addition to that, we also planned this awards night and red carpet. So I think we are getting a lot of feedback. We are working on that feedback. We are actually, seriously in talks with something called as a voice of customer in our terminologies, so that we can learn from that and we can improve from that. So last year when we did the first film festival, it was a completely new ballgame for us because I had done production and distribution, but I had never planned a festival. Yeah. But then we could successfully pull it through thanks to all my volunteers and our executive committee members. Yeah. But this year, the way we are trying to do it, even at a different level that we are trying to reach. And we want people to note that there is something called as Marathi. We want people to note that there is something called as a sensible cinema. And if they want to connect these two dots, they can come and attend this. Because this year, we are also going to get lots of non-Marathi speaking community to come and watch our movies, because all our movies are with English subtitles.
And this is the spirit of it, right? So for people to have a great amount of enduring, lasting impressions of Marathi film, I think these kinds of events are going to go very, very far. Abhi, thank you so much for joining. And, तुमच्याशी बोलून खूप बरं वाटलं. आणि मुख्य तुम्हाला व पूर्ण नाफा टीमला खूप खूप अभिनंदन आणि शुभेच्छा. Really a wonderful treat talking to you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Come and watch NAFA Film Festival. It's an experience happening on 25th, 26th, and 27th of July at California Theaters, San Jose. Thank you.
You're listening to Trust Me, I Know What I'm Doing. Stay tuned.